Hello and welcome to your astrological vibrations for Wednesday, May 13th, 2020 by Gaia Blooming. I am Mimi, and our energy mantra for today is I value the new understanding that these lessons are bringing. And Holy Lessons Week, we are definitely in it. Today-ish, before this or after this video is being recorded, we have two major shifts. We have Venus going retrograde. So Venus only goes retrograde every year and a half-ish, 18 months about. And we have Mars moving into Pisces. And these two really do go hand in hand. Now it's interesting because Venus will be retrograde until June 25th. And Mars will be in Pisces till June 27th. So these energies doing this, the Venus energy, which really brings us the yin lessons, and the Mars energy, which brings us the yang lessons, are definitely going to be working together. Now, let's start with Venus retrograde. Venus retrograde, anytime we have a planet go retrograde, it is a return. It's a return to lessons past. They may be from the last month and a half. It may be from the last year and a half. It may be from the last 5 years. It may be from the last 5 lifetimes. That's one of the things with retrogrades. There are no necessary rules. We do have to look definitely at the sign that it is to help bring some format to it. But just be aware that it is a return. And so it's just, okay, what is this review that's needed around lessons, around our yin lessons, around relationship lessons with Venus in Gemini in the retrograde. I was going to say in the sign of retrograde. Gemini is really interesting because Gemini is such, if there was to be a sign that I would say is very extroverted in nature generally, it would be Gemini. Gemini really does get a lot of energy from interactions and feeding off information, intel from everything around, not just people around. It's like literally everything. Gemini is the definition of squirrel. I have a few Gemini rising friends, and we have squirrel jokes because we can be like, oh, squirrel. In fact, my nickname in high school was actually Mirror because I was always like, what's going on? What's going on? Like trying to assimilate all the information. Now this is going to be so interesting because we're turning our focus from that meerkat, squirrel, outward based energy to internally. One of the things with Venus retrogrades is while it does affect outward relationships, it really is about bringing that relation back to ourself. And of course, we get nice mirrors outside. But really, what are those mirrors telling you? Or how are those mirrors helping you hack your relationship on the inside? So those mirrors are still going to be there. There is still going to be intel coming from the outside, information coming from the outside. But this is that inward focus. So it's like, oh, this person did that. I wonder what that means for them. It's like, oh, this person did this. How do I experience this internally? What is this bringing to me in relationship to myself, in relationship to me? Now, it's also interesting because I've been talking so much, and I would say this has really been over the last, I'd say probably, I really feel like it really started amplifying right before my father passed, the yin rising. So that was about 5 years ago that I really felt that pull of this yin coming out from underground. Even though this is a retrograde, which is that turning in, I feel like this is still part of the yin returning and rising. I feel like there is so much left unexpressed by the yin. I feel the yin has been so shut down in our world for so long, beyond my concept of time long. And I really do feel like this inner searching, taking that taking that attention that Gemini usually gives the outside world and bringing it to each of our inside worlds, I think we're going to discover there was so much to be expressed, so much to be said, so much creation power and energy. I know I have it somewhere here. Creator energy. So much of that we need to go, like I said, intel, deep within to really find it and like kind of pull it up. Gemini is the ideal sign for this because Gemini will take in that information and will be able to bring it up when the time is right. So do be aware, like really, if possible, take time during this Venus retrograde in Gemini to journal, to look within. What have I left unexpressed? Asking Spirit, what from other lifetimes has needed expression that is now ready to come forward in and through this energy. So really tuning into that through this. Now again, Venus retrogrades, I'll preface this with, astrology is the study of patterns. So I have seen through the study of patterns, Venus retrogrades are notoriously difficult on relationships. I wouldn't say that Venus is generally the most critical sign. Venus loves beauty, Venus loves pleasure, and Venus is often willing to focus like on the goodness and on the harmony. When Venus goes retrograde, I feel like Venus's standards go up. And so these things that were suddenly brushed over in order for the name of harmony are suddenly, wait, this isn't harmonious in me. So Venus retrograde can be challenging on relationships. Again, I want to remind us that everything that's outside of us is helping us give some kind of a mirror. Now, it doesn't mean that it's an exact mirror. If somebody's, let's see, I'm trying to think of a really good analogy for this. Okay, so if somebody's always talking over you, for example, Venus retrograde, this mirror doesn't mean that you're necessarily your exact mirror, that you're talking over somebody, but it can represent, in a funhouse mirror way, those unexpressed energies. There's so much expression because Gemini is the sign of communication, talking, listening, and listening is very key in and through this as well. So just be aware that it may not be an exact mirror, but do be asking for the mirror. Gemini is the sign of the twins. And so we really just want to be very aware of how the twinning is showing up. The listening point, before I do any scope, I sit and I listen. Oh, speaking of twins, I pulled a card for Venus retrograde, and I got the friendliness card. We are in a friendly universe, but here we have those mirrors. They're not exact, right? But they are mirroring each other, so do be aware of that. Anyway, the listening thing. See how I'm jumping around? This is Gemini. Anyway, the listening piece. We may be called to listen more than we actually express through this retrograde. Like I said, this may be more about digging deep, and the expression comes when Venus goes direct again, but do be willing to write. But that was one of the major messages when I was like, well, I'm here listening, and I listened for a while, and I was like, and I'm still listening, and I'm listening, and I'm still listening, and I was like, oh, oh, that's part of the message. Really being willing to listen, whether you're listening with your eyes, whether you're listening with your ears, whether you're listening with your inner knowing, whether you're listening with your gut, whether you're listening to your body, or to the wind, or to spirit, listening is definitely key in and through this, and see how you can let that be one of your mantras through each and every day. How can I listen? All right, so let's dig into this Mars and Pisces energy. Again, no mistakes. This is happening at the same time that we have this Venus retrograde. Venus and Mars, they're more aligned than we even give them credit for. Now, Mars in Pisces, it will square this Venus energy. Gemini and Pisces, they square each other. They're different kinds of information gatherers. Like I said, Gemini gathers from everything all around. Pisces really gathers spiritual intel from like God, universe. Pisces often has a deep knowing. Now Mars is the planet of action. Mars is the planet of passion, aggression, war. And let's be fair, there have been many spiritual wars fought. And yet I don't feel like Mars in Pisces this time is meant to be spiritual wars. To me, this is like Venus, like, hey, Mars, have you been listening? Have you been paying attention to where I have offered my intuition, and then you take that action? And how when you take that intuition-guided action, the things go better. Mars is now like, Venus is in the underworld. Venus is like, okay, I'm going to be down here, tuning into my own intel. Mars, you are responsible for tuning in. You are responsible for listening. You are responsible for realizing that there is this direct connection to spirit. So this time to me, it's really interesting because, again, I know things are like starting to slowly open back up. And yet the astrology is telling us this isn't necessarily a call to action unless you are intuitively guided into that action. So really paying attention to your intuition, to your higher self, to your guides to show you how and where to act. It also may bring up sensitivities in the young part of you. And it's really interesting because, like I said, Venus, this yin planet, is going retrograde at this time. And yet Mars in Pisces may be feeling a little bit more sensitive. The card I pulled specifically for Mars in Pisces is the projections card. So Mars may be feeling that pull back of the yin. So this could be an internal, thing between your inner yin and yang. This can be in relationships. And yin doesn't mean the female one, yang doesn't mean the masculine one. We all have some level of balance of these energies within us, but do be aware of that young part of yourself, which suddenly may be feeling things and it's like, oh my God, feelings. What do I do with these feelings? And again, the yin is off on her own hero's journey kind of energy at this time. So it's up to the yang to really sit with these feelings, the deep energies of Pisces, and work through them and with them. Now there can be that action, reaction, response with this. Like I said, we don't need any spiritual wars. We really don't need that in this day and age, right? No. So, sitting with the feelings, being in surrender, that's a key word of those Pisces energy. That may be hard for the Mars, but I think we've been practicing. We've actually, all this time, we've just been practicing for Venus retrograde and Mars in Pisces. There will come a time for action. Mars will be moving into Aries for a very long time this year, like for half the year. So there will come a time for the action, but for now, the deep listening, allowing the feelings, surrender to that higher divine plan, that is what is important, and that is what we are called for in these energies. So we've got this. Now it's also interesting because I really do feel like Venus retrograde may be feeling a little rebellious. And so Venus in Gemini may not want to be like, oh, I'm listening to my intuition and spiritual calling. So that young side may have to take over and be like, hey, I know you're in the underworld and you like want to go out for ice cream, but like, chill, I will take care of you. This is a call for that yang energy to really show up for the Venus energy as it is going deep. So be very aware. Again, this may be in your relationships, your physical relationships, and this may be an internal practice as well. Have I said everything that I want to say with this? I believe so. So, last thing I want to mention besides showing you the rest of my cards is tomorrow we have Jupiter going retrograde. So, to tally, we have Pluto now retrograde, we have Saturn now retrograde, we have Venus now retrograde. Here comes Jupiter, Mars in Pisces. That's the last thing I want to say. If you are feeling tired, if you are feeling non-responsive, because, wow, this is a lot, give yourself a break. This is one of the things that we've been learning this year, is really listening to our physical body and its needs. So please keep honoring what your physical body is telling you during this. I told everybody that you may hit a wall. I definitely hit a wall this afternoon before that Mars shift, but I was like, oh, I feel it coming in. Mars at 0 degrees can really tank our energies. So if your energy is tanking, sit, listen. What is it that you need at this time? All right, so epic journeys happening right now. You know, it looks like we're moving through the dark, and yet there is so much light as we move in and through this process. Here we see ourselves listening, tuning deeper in existence. It's the magician. There's so much mindfulness that we can find deep within us that can bring out amazing insights. Trusting the process, trusting the emotional process. Again, deep creations coming through here. And I think we're going to find parts of ourselves long withheld. Whether it's inner child, whether it's your inner yin, whether it's your inner yang. There's so much energy that can be brought to the surface in and through all of this. So, that is it for today. You can book a reading with me. Email me, mimiclark@gmail.com. Besides that, the better it gets, the better it gets. There's more than enough love in the world for you. You have the power, and stay curious. Namaste.